What's up, everybody? This is Alex Christoforou from the Duran, and I'm here with Peter Lavelle, host of RT's CrossTalk. And today we're going to be talking about the media meltdown over the Trump-Putin Helsinki summit. So, Peter, I'm just going to come right out and ask you your first impressions on this media meltdown over the Trump-Putin summit in Helsinki. What are your first thoughts?
Well, I watched the press conference, and I think, as people know from CrossTalk and from my social media, I was very disappointed in Donald Trump because he committed a self-inflicting wound on himself. When he was asked about the recent indictment of GRU officials here in Russia for meddling, Donald Trump was given a perfect opening, and he fumbled. What he should have said, well, that's an indictment. I'm only concerned with one thing. And I have said repeatedly that there is no collusion. This indictment has nothing to do with my campaign. Okay, so let's move on. All right? That's what he should have done. Also, another thing, watching the President of the United States yesterday changing would or wouldn't, I mean, that's again, you and I were talking just a few days ago. I mean, he had a 10-day streak, which is just unbelievable. And then we know that he knew that the indictment would come out right before the summit. Okay, so apparently, and I'm never going to go to bat for Rosenstein, but I wonder if Trump could have said, "Could you delay it?" A couple days afterwards, maybe Rosenstein might have done it. We don't know. But the fact that he knew it was going to come before the summit tells me that his political calculus failed him. Now, on the media, well, it was a perfect opening, isn't it? Okay, I think it shows the state of the media when the former head of the CIA, Brennan, starts using the words traitor, treacherous, treasonous. Okay, and then everyone mimics it. They're a caricature of themselves now, and I've been waiting, and we still haven't gotten the inner circle around Trump pushing back. Why? I don't understand this. Okay. I watch my fair share of MSNBC. I think I should be paid to watch it because it's really painful. CNN also. These people don't know what they're talking about. As simply as that. Going around, I'm old enough to know, I remember when Richard Nixon went to the Soviet Union and met Brezhnev. I remember when Gerald Ford met Brezhnev. I remember Jimmy Carter. He met Brezhnev. And I can go all the way to the present. And none of them were called traitors. Some of them said they made mistakes in meeting Soviet leaders, but we never got to this level here. So it's like an infection. It's like a fever. Everyone's hair is on fire. But let's look at the facts, all right? And the facts just tell me that it was bad communication from the White House, and plus, we see that Russia is the eternal enemy. So I just say to people that feel that way, so we go to war? Okay, the ball's in your court. What should we do? Look, Alex, common sense would tell you, if when Putin and Trump are together, Trump's going to say, obligatory, did you meddle in our elections? And obligatory, Putin's going to say no. I mean, during the presser, everything could have been turned around. Putin could have said to Donald Trump, well, did your government in 1996 meddle in the Russian election of Boris Yeltsin? I see a Time magazine cover here. Yanks to the rescue. Okay, is his hair on fire? Who's gone, mental here? I mean, I had a gentleman from the Brookings Institution on, Michael O'Hanlon, and he's very opposite to my point of view, and I confronted him with that. I said, why is everyone's hair on fire when there's an allegation that Russia's doing something when we know the U.S. has been doing it for decades? Okay, we could spend a podcast, and I'd have to get a whiteboard and go down all of the countries, and that's just since the Second World War. Okay, we go to the 19th century in Latin America if you want to. All right, so obviously, this is to discredit and Trump. And I've said this before, and I will repeat myself. Collusion hasn't been proven and will not be proven. It would have been leaked by it now. Obstruction of justice. Well, you can make the claim, but Donald Trump can fire anybody he wants in the executive branch. He can pardon anyone he wants. He can pardon himself. It's in the Constitution. Read it. All right? So what do we have left? Treason. Treason. And remember, people don't always know this, impeachment is a political process. It is not a legal process. So Republicans and maybe some stray the Democrats and some stray Republicans come together and they can write up an article of impeachment.
Right.
Okay? It could be for a parking ticket if they want, and I'm not trying to be glib here, all right? They can call that a misdemeanor, a parking ticket. And then if they pass it through the lower house, they can vote on the Senate. And I'm not trying to make fun of this here, but it's a political process. So this is how treason works. This is a political thing. You don't have to prove anything. All you have to do is get Congress to agree that this reaches the bar for impeachment and removal. And that's what they want to do.
Yeah. One of the things that really disappointed me about Trump's remarks was when he walked it back. One of the things I've always admired about Trump was the fact that no matter what he would say, he would never apologize for it, because he knew instinctively that the minute he apologized, the sharks would just come after him even harder. But this time he walked it back, and I thought it was a very un-Trump-like maneuver. What do you take of it, and how do you think the media is going to react to that right now?
When you saw, I think it was NBC. He had an interview with NBC. That wasn't the Trump that you and I know. He was very meek, and the thing is that he created an opening. When I was growing up, the New York Times, the Washington Post, this is all before cable. They never criticized the president when he was abroad. It was a principle. You didn't do that, okay? And for me, that was just so disappointing. I mean, the press can never they never seem to reach the bottom in my mind. They just keep going down and down. Trump should have taken the lesson of Margaret Thatcher. Never apologize. Never.
Right.
Okay?
I totally agree.
And keep pushing. The thing is that we all know, and these kind of low-octane journalists know as well, that going after the intelligence community means they can go after you. Okay, now it's fair season, open season, and this is what's happening. My sense is that Trump is, he watched some of that Peter Strzok stuff, and it really enraged him. Okay, is that this is the deep state that's going after me. There are a lot of people like that. How many leaks have there been for this whole saga that criticize Hillary Clinton? Once. It's mind-boggling. Okay. It's always a one-way bias, okay? So the media is gleeful. They're having a great time with it. They've been waiting for Trump for him to trip up, and he did. And one of my original criticisms, I watched the presser and then I mulled it over, and the next day I wrote my Facebook comment, and then I did a program on it. And what's most important? Did this meeting move the needle in Russia-U.S. relations? And I was talking to Mary Dashevsky on my program. Great person, really sound person. And she gave me a little bit of hope that the needle might have been moved. But anything that Trump proposes now, it's going to be Congress is going to go through and pass some non-binding resolution stopping Trump from doing anything. They want to bring in the interpreter, for God's sake. That's unheard of.
Yeah,
that's unheard of. I came across this woman's name, and there's only one interpreter. It was Gorbachev's interpreter that everybody remembers, guy with the mustache. Remember? Yeah. And he's the only guy. Every single president, every secretary of state have translators. Well, I've never heard people calling them to testify in Congress. I mean, it's like having a Secret Service agent. Talk us through what happened in the Obama White House. For me, that's going over the line. No, That's called confidentiality. And this president doesn't get that. So this is an opening, and they're going to milk it for all they can. The timing, Mueller's going to keep churning around his investigation. They're going to keep it up, keep the tempo up. This is all about the midterms. Yeah. It's all about the midterms. The good news is most people don't care. We care. We watch it like a hawk, right? And so does the low-octane liberal media, okay? But the American people, they don't really care much about it. And it's going to be, in their minds, it's going to be turned around. Like I just said, they're insulting him. They've gone way over the line. That's going to firm up his support. His base is going to be completely unaffected by this, okay? It's these hapless liberal Republicans that you have to worry about, okay? Because the Democrats, they're already, they already have the daggers out. This is a whole thing. And if you look at the Atlantic, I think it's James Fallows, right after the summit, he gave the talking point. Go after these moderate Republicans. That's their strategy. They don't have any plan. They're not going to grow the economy 4.5%. They're not going to look at tax reform. They don't believe in borders, so there's not going to be any immigration laws. So this is what they're going to focus in on. The pressure is going to be on these weak Republicans, okay? A lot of could happen. We're going to have the Supreme Court nominee, that process. The base is going to come out for that one, so we'll see this ebb and flow. But this is our worst nightmare. And I have to always say in these podcasts that I don't like everything Donald Trump says and does. I don't like his style all the time either, okay? When he's in Duluth and Fargo, the guy, it's a barn burner. I mean, he's in his element, and he rocks at it, okay? But Duluth and Fargo, that style doesn't belong in Helsinki.
In Helsinki, yeah. Yeah,
okay?
I agree.
Because I watched the press approach in Singapore. That was awful. It was awful. And there was a repeat in Helsinki. So, he's got to improve his game there.
Yeah, with a much more scrutiny as well. I would say the Trump-Putin one was amplified by 10 compared to his meeting with Kim Jong-un.
Oh, look, I mean, we all know the Trump hyperbole, okay? When, he's talking, there were 8 million fraudulent votes in California. Yeah. We all know it wasn't, but we get your point. We get your point, okay? And you don't say it with malice. You're not lying. You're just kind of off a little bit. We get that. And that's it's baked in for me, okay? Because as a historian, when he talks about the history of NATO, and I go, well, Donald, I should have had a chat with you before you talked about the history of NATO. But it's okay. They should pay more. You're right. Your bottom line is always right. How you get there is, you need to finesse it a little bit.
Yeah, that's true. Well, so let me ask you a question. What do you think of this recent controversy, I guess is the best way you could describe it now, which is the McFaul and the Browder issue right now? Explain for our viewers, because I have not seen anyone either on mainstream media, on alternative media, on YouTube, on any YouTube channel, rightly explain McFaul and Browder and this whole issue and how it relates to Russia and Putin. Because the only things I hear, Peter, whether it's Fox News, Morning Joe, even smart, intelligent people like Ben Shapiro, is I hear Putin's a thug, Putin's a dictator, Putin's a this, and Trump, treasonous, traitor, very simplistic epitaphs and terms. But explain to us now this whole Browder McFaul thing and how it relates to Putin and Russia.
I don't think there's really much to it because Browder, his criminal activities in Russia predate McFaul. Okay. So the chronology isn't really there. But what's interesting is that going back to the presser, who was in charge? Vladimir Putin, every step of the way. He's got a lot of experience, okay? A lot, okay? And so he's proposing that under this 1999 law where the U.S. and Russia can work together in criminal investigations, they can help each other. Putin mentioned it twice, and he mentioned it again when he was talking with Chris Wallace. And so, but Putin is saying, well, you can talk to our people, but maybe we could talk to your people. See, the reciprocity. And that drives people crazy because it's not an equal relationship. Well, yes, it is. At least it should be, okay? That's how the Russians see it. You know, Browder is a criminal. I mean, this guy, with his Hermitage Capital Fund, they had some really, really screwy tax evasion rules. And maybe I have to be fair, he wasn't the only one that did it. A lot of people did it. Okay?
This was in the 90s, right?
It's in the 90s, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And his, they always say his lawyer, Magnitsky, he was his accountant, everyone, not a lawyer. He's the one that came up with these schemes.
There you go.
Okay. The fact that he died in prison, that looks very, very bad for the Russian side. Yep. All I can tell you is that I worked at a place, at a very small investment company, and it was right next to a police station where there was a holding facility. And every once in a while, you'd see these big trucks, you know, these metal trucks, and they had people that were charged with serious crimes. I saw how they were escorted from the truck into the building. You don't want to get involved in the Russian criminal justice system. Sorry, it's pretty tough, okay? But that's inexcusable for someone to die in custody. But there's really nothing to the story. What I found was really hilarious is how Michael McFaul was on Twitter.
Expand on that. Expand on that.
Like a 13-year-old girl. Oh my God! Oh, I expect protection. I expect protection. I mean, he's been very, very antagonistic towards Russia, even when he was here. Okay, I mean, he went out of his way to cultivate the really marginal opposition here. And he was really much in the face of the Kremlin, showing that I can do what I want to do. I'm representing the United States of America. But my personal opinion, he didn't carry on in the most diplomatic way. You know, when you have a foreign ambassador in your country, they shouldn't be in the news. Okay, they're the person on the ground for the eyes and ears for the people back home. McFaul he likes the showboat, his huge ego. You see it in Twitter all the time. I banned him on Facebook. I couldn't stand reading it anymore. Who cares? It's all about me. I mean, the thing is, what I find really hilarious is that, you know, he criticizes Trump. It's always about Trump. Oh, Michael McFaul, it's always about you too, isn't it? Okay. And he's no expert in Russia. He's an expert on regime change. Okay. Democracy promotion. He's no Russia expert. Condoleezza Rice was no Russia expert. She was an arms control expert. Okay. And Susan Rice, well, I think she was just an expert in unmasking. Okay. But this whole thing with McFaul, it just. He's a darling of the Democrats. He's a big Democratic Party guy. His wife is even further to the left than himself. I think that she's part of Move On or something like that. So, I mean, he's just showboating and just another dagger to throw at Trump. The thing is that under the 1999 law, well, I mean, I guess you could ask about it, and I think that's what Huckabee Sanders was basically saying, is that, I mean, well, we'll take a look at it, okay? See, what's really the problem here is that this is American exceptionalism clouding everyone's judgment, okay? So Putin's a thug. Okay, let's take that apart, okay? Well, he met with Kim. He meets with the Saudis. He meets with other Gulf monarchs. Oh, all these people are Jeffersonian Democrats, right? I don't care about these things. Look at Erdogan, okay, the new sultan. But he's there, and you got to deal with him, okay? That applies to everybody except for Vladimir Putin.
Right.
Okay? It's so one-sided. It's so myopic all the time. It has no logic to it. I mean, really, any kind of rational thought is absent, okay? And it's a feeding frenzy. And then you notice on cable with Morning Joke and Meager, you know, everybody has to outdo each other, or maybe the other way around. Everyone has to dig deeper and deeper and deeper. I mean, we've run out of insults in the English language for them. I suppose they're going to start using French, okay? We could teach a couple ones in Greek and Russian to them if you want. Yeah. But, you know, it doesn't get us anywhere. It's not, for them, it's not about policy. What I wanted to know, what did they talk about when it came to Syria, Ukraine, and arms control? The rest of it is theater. It's theater, okay? And this is have you, all the major networks, have anybody mentioned any substance? Any? No.
No, they get, I think every major network and every alternative channel got Ukraine and Crimea completely wrong. And I want you to expand on and talk a little bit about the Chris Wallace interview with Putin, because Chris Wallace got a ton of stuff wrong, and Putin called him out on a lot of things. Can you explain to our viewers exactly, I mean, start educating a lot of these mainstream media pundits and these alternative, news channels on YouTube as to exactly what's going on in Crimea. What's Putin's position on these things? Because everyone is getting it completely wrong, and all they're turning to is he's a thug, he invaded, he's a thug.
Let's just have a timeline here. Let's go from the passing out of cookies on the Maidan by Victoria Nuland. John McCain shows up, other senators, and they're whipping up this revolutionary moment. Well, they wanted to overthrow the democratically elected government in Ukraine, and they did. And some very nefarious neo-Nazi fascistic forces were very much at the forefront of this. The Atlantic Council admits this now, okay? All right, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. Go there. They hate Russia. They're the PR arm of NATO. Okay, so the government is overthrown immediately, and this is what ethno-nationalists do all the time. They start saying, there's only one language for Ukraine. Before, it was Russia and Ukrainian existed. Nope, it's only Ukrainian. The people that voted for the president that was overthrown are in the east of Ukraine. It's called the Donbass, Novorossiya, whatever you want to call it, okay? That was their president that was overthrown. And then they see a very aggressive ethno-nationalist regime come to power, and they are not part of that experience. In eastern Ukraine, they have different traditions, like they celebrate the victory in the Second World War. A lot of the folks in the West don't see it that way, okay? And these people like Bandera, Ukrainians that worked with the Nazis, killed Jews and Poles. That's all history, okay? And then Crimea. Well, here the legal government of Ukraine is overthrown, backed by Western forces and money to the tune of $5 billion. The people of Crimea said, we really don't like being part of this. We have never liked being part of Ukraine. Let's get out of it, because this is going to turn into a train wreck. And I don't think I'm exaggerating. In the Donbass, already 12,000 people have been killed by the government in control in Kiev. The Crimeans said, hey, we're not going to have this. They had an election, international observers. They asked Russia to if they would accept them into the Russian Federation. Have I used the word annexation yet? No, because it didn't happen. Go to the dictionary. Annexation is acquiring territory through force. How many people died in the invasion? None. How
you
many?
Can say it was an accession rather than annexation.
Yeah, and if you did a little bit, I mean, this is even on Wikipedia, and as far as I know, that's still available to the general public. Okay, in 1991, and I think 3 or 4 times since 1991, before 2014. Moscow and Kiev negotiated the terms and conditions for military and naval forces on the Crimean Peninsula. Okay, so they invaded Crimea. No, they were already there. Right. Okay, they were already there, but they were moving troops. And yes, that was a scheduled rotation. Happens all the time. So you're seeing something that you want to see. All right, and well, if Kosovo can have independence, I guess, Crimea can do what it wants to do. I remember sitting in RT studios when this had the illegal recognition of Kosovo. I said, this sets a precedent that it opens up a Pandora's box, and we see it in this case right here. So it's part of Russia.
Right. Our
viewers need to know Crimea is a constituent part of the Russian Federation. Russia will, let me stress here, will go to war. That's serious, to protect the sovereignty of its country. That's sovereign Russia. The people there agree to it. And, maybe, but, all through even what John Roberts at Fox, well, are you going to talk about Crimea? What's there to talk about? It's done. You overthrew the democratically elected government in Kiev. Now you have a new NATO surrogate. For all intents and purposes, Ukraine is part of NATO now. What did Russia get out of it? It got a nice piece of real estate, talking like Donald Trump right now. It got to protect people. and the very important strategic military base in Sebastopol.
Yeah.
So there's not much to negotiate. I mean, what there is to negotiate, and Putin did say it, nobody listened, is that Donald Trump needs to talk to NATO and the European Union to get the Ukrainians back to the negotiating table to end the conflict in eastern Ukraine. That is doable, okay? But Angela Merkel, she's hanging on by a thread. Is Theresa May still there?
Yeah.
We don't, and then we have a new government in Italy that just doesn't want to get involved in all of this. They would rather have good relations. Okay, so there are no adults at the table right now, and the situation in Ukraine is dicey. If there is another push, the conflict there will heat up. Maybe that's what they want in the West, to put pressure on Donald Trump. They will continue pressuring. So, I mean, what Chris Wallace, I didn't see the entire interview. The only reason why I didn't watch the whole thing again is that didn't come very well prepared, did you, Chris? And I actually like Chris Wallace, okay? I give him a fair shot. He's very good with domestic politics. But his whole approach, again, is it's arrogance. It never looks at what the U.S. does in the world, meddling. Meddling isn't even a legal term. I mean, I caught you meddling. What is the penalty for meddling?
Everyone accepts it now. It's Russian meddling. Russian meddling. No one defines what the hell it is.
And what is collusion? That's not a legal term. Okay. I mean, what we need to do is meddling and collusion. Did they create a corrupt relationship? Okay. That's where it gets. Did one side give something for something else? Was there a quid pro quo? Okay, that's corruption. Okay, collusion. It's a new word it's meaningless. It can mean anything you want. Okay, and that's why the low octane media loves to use it, because they don't have to stick it on anything. All right, so some of my closest friends, they because they're more policy driven, it was good that they met, the two leaders, and they started. And my attitude is, I don't know. I mean, what I care most about is the country that I was born in, and now the country where I live. I don't want them both to go to war. Okay.
You mentioned that Putin was mostly in control during the summit. A lot of it was due to his experience. I mean, he's been through this song and dance many times. How would you rate, though, Putin in general from this summit? I mean, give us just a real quick and close this conversation. How do you think? What do you think he was going after before entering this summit, and how do you think he feels coming out of this summit?
Well, I think the problem is, more than anything else, is that I think that the Russian side sees Trump as not in control of his foreign policy, particularly the foreign policy that has to do with Russia. It's pretty much out of his hands. And so the Russians, in principle, they want better relations with the United States, but I don't think they see that it's going to be possible. And to be honest with you, watching it from this side of the pond, it's so exhausting. It's so pedantic. It's like dealing with a partner that is unreliable. And I think that Putin looks at Trump as sincere, but does he have the gravitas to move the needle forward? And so I saw a bit of a sense of frustration with Putin to some degree, because there's no follow through here. And Putin mentioned it very eloquently, is that this is all internal affairs of the United States. It doesn't really have much to do with us here. So I think Putin treated him fairly. Putin did what he does best. He represents the interests of the Russian people and the Russian Federation, and that's it. So, but as far as a takeaway, I think Putin and Lavrov are going to say, these people, I mean, they're living in their own little private Idaho somewhere, right, and there's not much we can do about it. Okay, so Russia has interest. It can negotiate, but it's not going to give up. It's not going to give in to this kind of pressure. Why should it?
Right. So going forward, we just go back to Putin goes back to the Kremlin, Trump goes back to the White House, and what's the next steps? I mean,
Well, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, again, this will sound kind of banal for maybe most people, but the START agreement, arms control agreement, expires in 2021, and they need to start both sides give an indication they want to move that forward. So I hope they're doing that. Almost on everything else. One thing is really interesting is that when the liberals, then when they come on CrossTalk and they talk to me and they say, well, what about sanction relief? Don't they want sanction relief? And I really tore into somebody, I think it was last week. I said, Russia doesn't ask for sanction relief because it sees the sanctions as being illegitimate. No evidence has been presented to the Russian Federation justifying these sanctions. Okay, they take their consular buildings away from them, like in San Francisco. Breaking international law, breaking American law, and they were given no justification. You meddled. What does that mean? Okay, right. So the Russians are very stoic about it. Relations are bad; they're going to stay bad. But I'm hoping, people like General Mattis, there's maybe a back channel there, and say, can we continue talking about Syria? And, button this one up and get it over with. Okay. And it was a big victory for Poroshenko and his camp. All right, and just and I'm talking about issues that I'm concerned with. Ukraine's right next door. If you go to a newsroom, RT newsroom, at any point in time, there are going to be people that don't have relatives in the Donbass. I mean, it's an important issue to hear. Because that's the family, an extended family, okay, and we would like to see that resolved. And it's still a tripping point that could really get far worse, depending on the cast of characters and the situation that could play out.
Yeah, and my hunch is that to Trump, Ukraine is really not that big of a deal whatsoever.
No, it's not. It's not. And if you listen to Trump, through the NATO trip and to the summit, he does believe NATO is obsolete. You can tell. And he said it during the campaign, and he's absolutely spot on right. Okay? Yeah. And so his attitude is, okay, we're going to have NATO, then buy American arms. If you really love NATO so much, okay? And, Montenegro, wow, what a great strategic move for NATO. Did you know that New York City has its police force. Its police force is larger than the entire army of Montenegro. Okay, wow, there's an added value ally. This is insanity. Anyone that knows about alliances knows that you have to have core members that can commit to it. You extend it too much, they could be. Do you want your friends and family to get into a war over Montenegro? Huh? Really? This is madness. How does this add to American security? How does it add to European security? You know what, Montenegro? In a potential conflict, you just made yourself a target. Good going.
Yeah. Yeah. Trump knows that, and the Tucker Carlson interview with Trump, where they brought up Montenegro, I think Trump even admitted that Montenegro's a small country. We're not going to go to war over Montenegro, and he's like, but that's the way NATO was set up. What do you want me to do? He was like, it was set up like that.
One thing that's really interesting is that, and again, I fault Donald Trump because I wrote in my Facebook post, he wasn't prepared, he wasn't focused, because he's really interested in the wall, he's interested in jobs, he's interested in immigration, he's really into these things, and that's why he's so fluid with them, okay? These things are so much more challenging because, when he's talking about immigration and the wall, he's got his base, and it's vocal and he can see them. But then when you get to something like this where the well is so poisoned with partisan politics, it's so much more difficult to manage. And he showed that, okay? He showed that. And much to his detriment, I would say. Because this opening, he should have just said to that question to NBC, he said, no collusion. Right. No one's proven collusion. That indictment has nothing to do with this case. Move on. Right. And it would have worked.
It would have worked. I agree. It would have worked. That was the correct route that he should have taken. Anyway, I don't think the story's going to die out until the next controversy. So we'll see how long this lasts. Maybe 2-3 more days, and then I'm sure they'll get to the next Trump scandal, controversy, whatever.
I would like to see John Brennan deposed. I want him to testify. He's one of the architects of this fake conspiracy, and that's why he's so vocal. Because he knows if it gets to him, it's there. Okay.
Oh yeah, he's projecting. He's projecting.
So Brennan, Jim Comey, McCabe, Rosenstein, they're all in this. Okay, and they know it.
I agree. I think Brennan is one of the top architects of this thing, and he's definitely projecting with his rhetoric. There's no doubt about it. Anyway, Peter Lavelle, host of RT's CrossTalk. Guys, if you like this video, click on the subscribe button down below. Also click on the notifications bell to get notifications every time we push out a new video. And don't forget, visit the Duran shop, pick up a shirt, help support the Duran. Until next time, guys, take care.